In example 9.1.1, we're revisiting what we looked at when we first learned about regression way back in Chapter 2. So we had the large data set with the sleep study data that we've used for some of our assignments before. We looked at two of the variables from that. It was drinks, number of alcoholic drinks per week, and GPA for the students. And we have a sample of 253 students in the data set. So what we want to do in this example is decide if there is some linear relationship in the population by doing a hypothesis test, and then also look at a 95% confidence interval for the slope and mention what that tells us about the relationship. So I've written some of the details down already. Because we're asked to test for some linear relationship, that suggests a two-tailed alternative. So our null is that our slope is equal to 0. Our alternative is not equal to 0. If you're asked for some direction like positive or negative, that will be the greater than or less than. But we just have some here. Our test statistic is going to be the sample slope divided by its standard error, which for now we're just pulling out of a table. So our slope is in the drinks row, which is negative 0.02659. Next to it is its standard error of 0.006. So when you take the slope divided by the standard error, you get a test stat of t equal negative 4.4317. The degrees of freedom that we'll be using for these problems in Chapter 9 is n-2. Since we have 253 students in this data set, if we subtract 2, we get degrees of freedom of 251. So to look up the p-value in StatKey, we will go to the t-distribution and enter 251. And then we select that we're doing a two-tailed test, and we'll put in our test stat. And we have the negative side, so negative 4.4317. And what we'll get is double that area in the tail, which is very small, so double 0.000007. Okay, so we end up with a p-value of 0.000014, which is definitely less than our 0.05 level. So we would reject our null here. And then to finish off, what we'd write for the rest of our conclusion is that we have significant evidence of some linear relationship between number of alcoholic drinks and GPA in the population of students. We can also explore slope by getting a confidence interval for it. To do that, we need our t-star, which will still have degrees of freedom of 251. To look this up in StatKey, we will put 95% in the middle and see what our cutoff is for that. Okay, so we'll put back here a 95% level. If you were just going into StatKey, you would enter your degrees of freedom of 251 and then just click two-tail and it would default to this. So we get on the bottom our t-star is plus or minus 1.969. Okay, so we take here's our formula, our sample slope plus or minus our t that we look up right from StatKey, that is not our t-test statistic or anything, times our standard error of 0.006, and we will get an interval from negative 0.0384 to negative 0.0148. What we can see is that since this is a confidence interval for our population slope appears to be a negative number because the interval is all negative. So this would suggest if we looked at the population of students that we would see a negative linear relationship between drinks and GPA.